You know that old pile of wood behind the shed? Most people would have thrown it out without thinking twice. But in this video, you'll see how that trash became the centerpiece of one of the most stunning backyard transformations we've ever shared. Welcome to Backyard Fortune, where junk finds new life and beauty grows from the unexpected. Today, we'll show you how cutting boards, scrap pallets, and even old crates became a magical garden fence you'll want to copy for your own home. The video is packed with ideas, and yes, we've included timestamps so you can jump to the parts that inspire you most. Let's dive in. One, the bottled berry fence. Some ideas don't shout, they whisper. And in a quiet corner of a once-forgotten garden, that whisper began with bottles. Ordinary bottles. Blue, green, and clear. The kind you'd find in the back of a cabinet or tossed into the recycling bin without a second thought. But in the hands of someone with vision, these bottles became something else entirely. At first glance, it looked simple. Bottles turned upside down and planted in the ground. But as the sunlight poured through them, something magical happened. They caught the light like stained glass, casting colorful shadows over the daisies and wild thyme below. Suddenly, this wasn't just a garden border, it was a glowing path, a curtain of glass that danced with color in the breeze. Between the bottles, strawberry vines began to curl and stretch, winding their way up with playful confidence. Plump, red berries peeked out like hidden treasures, their sweetness ripened by the kiss of the sun. Butterflies hovered above them, bees worked in soft murmurs, and lavender framed the base like violet mist. Not far from this glowing fence, another vision emerged. Clear plastic bottles, cut, painted, and reborn, rose from the soil like tulip bulbs in spring. Each one was filled with living soil and growing grapevines that swirled in soft arcs, tied gently with twine. Clusters of baby grapes hung like ornaments, swaying beneath the watchful eye of a small robin perched nearby. This second fence, sculpted from the very things we discard without thought, had become a growing wall of flavor and color. Moss grew thick along its base, and soft green herbs peeked out from between the bottles, bringing scent and healing to the earth around them. And then came the third transformation, a full-length fence made of emerald glass soda bottles lined neatly in rows, like guardians of a green fortress. Beneath them, strawberries ran wild and free, forming a lush carpet of leaves and fruit. The fence stretched wide, hugging the garden close like a friend, and at its feet, two wooden baskets brimmed with berries, freshly picked and still warm from the sun. It's easy to underestimate the things we throw away. Easy to forget their potential. But when we slow down and look again, we begin to see with different eyes. This isn't just about recycling. This is about resurrection. About breathing new life into the old. About creating beauty where there was none. About weaving nourishment, light, and imagination into one living structure. A fence, yes, but also a sanctuary. And you can do this too. Start small. Gather the bottles you thought were useless. Paint them. Wash them. Line them along the edge of your garden. Let vines find them. Let fruit grow beside them. Let birds rest and children wonder. Because sometimes, the most magical garden ideas don't come from shopping aisles, they come from what we almost threw away. And in that transformation, you might just find your own. Two, Rustic can charm fence. It began with an instinct to save what most would throw away. In a quiet backyard, surrounded by the scent of tomatoes on the vine and rows of lettuce rustling in the breeze, someone saw beauty not in new things, but in forgotten ones. Tin cans, old, ridged, and ordinary, were gathered not for the trash, but for a second life. Cleaned, painted, and transformed. The first transformation was soft and joyful. Each can became a pot, painted in pastel shades like candy in a springtime market. They were arranged along a graceful wooden arch, like dancers in mid-bow, each holding a gift: rosemary, basil, thyme. Their leaves swayed with pride, sparkling with morning dew. It wasn't just pretty. It was useful. It was alive. And then the charm deepened. Just a few steps away, a row of cans hung from rustic wooden posts, each one suspended with twine. From every container, green herbs flourished: oregano, lavender, thyme, marked with handwritten chalk labels that felt both humble and heartfelt. The path below, lined with bricks and barefoot footprints, led through this living wall of scent and healing. Bees hummed among the blossoms, and butterflies dipped and darted like floating petals. It felt more than a garden. It felt like a sanctuary built by hand and heart. Then came the final vision. Where others might see rusted cans as ruin, this garden saw structure. A fence, sculpted from the very tops of tin cans, stood strong like a mosaic wall from an old European tale. The circular lids, each worn uniquely by time, were stacked with symmetry and soul. Behind them, a lush wall of parsley, dill, and curly greens rose like a feast. Below, soft chamomile blossoms peeked through the moss, and birds gathered to sing from the edges. A stool sat nearby with a wicker basket brimming with fresh cuttings, ready for the kitchen or the neighbor next door. This wasn't about gardening. Not really. It was about choosing to see potential. It was about rewriting the narrative of waste. It was about building something nurturing out of nothing. And you can do this too. Start with what you already have. A can of beans you finished last night. A tin from the cupboard. Clean it. Punch a hole in the bottom. Add soil, a bit of compost, a seed. Basil loves small spaces. Mint thrives in the sun. Hang it. Paint it. Label it. Let your garden become a living story, not just of plants, but of second chances. Because in a world moving too fast, there's still something sacred about pausing, touching the earth, and growing something beautiful, useful, and kind. Especially when it starts from something you almost threw away. Three, clay brick orchard wall. Sometimes, the materials we forget have stories waiting to be retold. Like the humble terracotta brick, rough, aged, chipped in places, left in a pile behind the shed or buried beneath years of dust. But here, it was given a second voice. In a sweeping countryside, where hills roll like velvet under cotton skies, something extraordinary happened. These bricks, once lifeless, were reborn into an orchard of beauty and purpose. They weren't laid in rigid rows or built into heavy walls. Instead, they were woven into shapes, zigzags, diamonds, spirals, creating growing pockets between every angle. From those pockets, the miracle began. Tiny fruit trees emerged, one by one. Peaches, apricots, apples, small in size but heavy with promise. Their branches reached toward the sun, dripping with golden fruit and casting dappled shadows onto a sea of wild marigolds and thyme. The scent was sweet, floral, and herbal all at once, carried gently on the wind like a forgotten melody. Children wandered barefoot between the rows, baskets in hand. The ground was soft, the air still. Flowers bloomed from the slanted faces of the brick pockets, violas, chamomile, and creeping lavender, spilling over as if the earth couldn't contain its joy. And in the heart of this sanctuary, a spiral wall rose from the ground like a sacred labyrinth. Built with care from reclaimed bricks, it cradled fig trees at its center and ivy at its edges. The spiral form did more than look beautiful. It created microclimates for plants, helped retain moisture, and brought peace to anyone who walked its curves. This wasn't just structure. It was soul. Each brick had once served another life, perhaps in a demolished home or forgotten pathway. But now, it sheltered roots. Now, it held life again. And it proved something powerful. That good design doesn't require new things, only new eyes. If you're wondering how to begin your own journey, look to what's already around you. Old bricks, broken pieces, uneven shapes. Stack them, not perfectly, but thoughtfully. Leave space. Let the soil breathe. Add compost, herbs, flowering companions, and dwarf fruit trees. You don't need a large space. You need care. You need rhythm. You need love. And perhaps a touch of imagination. Because the truth is, gardens like this aren't built by chance. They are built by people who choose to see magic in what others call debris. And when that choice is made, even a wall can blossom. Whimsical wood patch fence. There's something about old wood that speaks in whispers, of what it once was, and of what it still could be. Out in a quiet meadow, where daisies lean into sunlight and clover cushions the earth, pieces of mismatched wood stood together like an orchestra of colors. Worn-out fence boards, bits of old doors, scraps that once bordered someone's field or framed someone's window. They had been forgotten, faded, cracked at the corners. But here, in this garden, they were reborn. Each board was brushed with pastel hues, lavender mist, buttercream yellow, mint green, and faded robin's egg blue. No two were exactly the same. Some tall, some short. Some square-cut, others with gentle curves. Together, they danced across the garden line like a row of childhood memories, stitched together by time. From between the boards, vines curled upwards, tendrils of cucumber, tomato, and climbing squash. Their fruits hung like ornaments, ruby red and deep green, swaying softly in the breeze. The fence had become more than a boundary. It had become alive. Farther along the path, another kind of whimsy appeared. A patchwork wall made not of fence boards, but of forgotten furniture. Cabinet doors, window frames, drawers, and shutter slats, all arranged as if some forest fairy had built a wall from the relics of an attic. Morning glories wound through the drawer handles. Vines climbed the lattice of glass panes. Melons ripened in midair. A dog napped quietly in the warm mulch beside a basket of fresh-picked vegetables. And in the corner, a nook of soft grass was cradled by another fence, this time hand-painted with delicate flower motifs. Soft blues, worn reds, gentle pinks, the boards bore the marks of imagination and care. Painted wildflowers twined across their surfaces, echoing the real blooms at their feet. Birds fluttered to perch. Pumpkins ripened on bamboo trellises. And hanging from a hook on one of the boards, a basket spilled over with lettuce and golden pears, just plucked from nearby vines. This wasn't just upcycling. This was art. This was hope. This was proof that beauty doesn't demand perfection, only attention and intention. If you want to create something like this in your own space, start with what you have. Broken pallet wood, old cabinet doors, window frames no longer used. Clean them, sand them lightly, paint them with colors that make your heart feel soft and sunny. Then plant anything. Cucumbers, beans, squash, tomatoes. Let vines climb and leaves dangle. Add a little chaos, a little wildness. Let your fence become part of the life it contains. You don't need a big budget to make magic. Just a bit of courage to believe in forgotten things. Because sometimes, what once seemed like scraps is actually the beginning of something beautiful. Five, bamboo vineyard frame. In the stillness of a European morning, the sound of bamboo touching bamboo creates a melody all its own, soft, rhythmic, like wind chimes in a quiet village. What was once a pile of old poles, forgotten, weathered, a little cracked, has now become the living bones of a garden that gives and gives. Someone once said, "Bamboo bends, but it never breaks." And here, that wisdom has taken root. Tied together with simple rope, the bamboo stands tall and graceful, shaped into trellises and fences that stretch across rows of lavender and earth. The frames look delicate, but they hold strong, cradling bunches of purple grapes that dangle like royal jewels in the sun. Blackberry vines weave through the lower tiers, their dark fruits bursting with richness. And in the corner, a wooden bench invites rest beneath the shaded cover of this living wall. But this is no ordinary fence. It's a frame for abundance. Along another path, the bamboo rises again, slender poles tied vertically, supporting a line of grapevines that grow with quiet determination. Their tendrils spiral, their leaves flicker in dappled sunlight. Below them, strawberries cluster in tidy rows. And beneath that, chamomile and clover fill in the gaps, a patchwork of scent and softness. Even the shadows here feel gentle. Walk a little further, and you'll find a tunnel of bamboo, an arched corridor, framed with wooden beams and trailing vines. Hanging baskets spill over with grapes, and wildflowers bloom on either side. A child runs barefoot down the path, laughter echoing between the poles, butterflies swirling in celebration. Birds rest on the highest rails, as if they, too, know they are part of something magical. It's hard to imagine that this all started with scrap bamboo. But that's the heart of it, the transformation. The act of seeing what could be, not just what is. Of choosing simplicity, sustainability, and soul over perfection. Of crafting structures that hold not just plants, but peace. If you're dreaming of creating something like this in your own garden, let bamboo guide you. It's strong, lightweight, and forgiving. With just twine and basic tools, you can shape it into arches, fences, or vertical trellises. Plant grapevines, passion fruit, or any climber that your climate welcomes. Add flowers at the base, lavender, wild pansies, even mint. Make it a place to pause. A place to play. A place to grow. And as it grows, you'll discover it's not just the garden that's transforming. It's you. Six, Seaside shell fence. Somewhere along the coast of imagination, where the sand meets earth, and gardens bloom with a hint of sea salt in the breeze, there lives a garden unlike any other. A humble fence, made not of iron or polished wood, but of weathered rope and forgotten seashells. What once sat dusty in an attic basket or tangled in old fishing lines is now reborn in sunlight, a poetic fence that whispers of tides and tells stories to the wind. At first glance, you might overlook it. It doesn't shout. It sings. Thick nautical ropes stretch from post to post, each loop hung not with ornaments of gold, but with treasures from the shore, scallop shells, spiral shells, salt-bleached and honest. They dance lightly in the breeze, clinking like memories. Between them, terracotta pots dangle like jewels, filled with cherry tomatoes, bell peppers, and herbs that soak in the warmth of day and glow under the evening sun. Some say this kind of beauty can't be built from throwaways. But here, even cast-off shells find purpose again, nestled between thyme and rosemary. What makes this fence special isn't just the way it looks, though it does look like something from a fairy tale set by the Mediterranean Sea. It's how it makes you feel calm, connected, and full of wonder. And it's not just decor. These hanging pots yield real food, sweet tomatoes ready to be plucked by tiny hands, peppers glistening like lanterns. The whole space becomes alive, not just a garden, but a living painting you walk through, breathe in, and taste. Want to recreate this at home? It's easier than it looks. Start with rope, strong, used, maybe even found at a flea market. Anchor it between simple wooden posts. Search your home or local thrift store for discarded shells, or simply use what nature leaves behind after a beach walk. Tie them with jute, let them sway freely. Then bring in the plants. Terracotta pots are ideal, breathable and beautiful. Fill them with cherry tomatoes, mini bell peppers, or trailing herbs like oregano or mint. Hang them at varying heights. Let it feel loose, effortless, like the sea. And don't worry if it's not perfect. This kind of magic loves imperfection. The charm lies in the sway of the rope, the way the wind chimes through the shells, and how the sunlight paints everything gold at dusk. Even children join in, harvesting their tiny crops, placing tomatoes into woven baskets, hats askew, laughter rising like birdsong through the trees. A place where gardening becomes storytelling and junk becomes joy. This isn't just a fence. It's a reminder that beauty often hides in the most overlooked places. That even discarded things, with a little patience, creativity, and heart, can bloom into something enchanting. So next time you see a broken rope, a box of old seashells, or a cracked pot, don't throw it away. Look again. You might just be holding the first chapter of your very own garden fairy tale. Seven. Vintage suitcase trellis wall. At first glance, they were just old suitcases. Scuffed leather, rusty clasps, frayed handles from travels long forgotten. Some had lost their color to the sun, others carried the scent of decades. Most people would have tossed them into the attic or the landfill, useless, outdated, unwanted. But in the hands of someone who sees with imagination, even the most neglected objects can bloom again. In one quiet corner of a garden, a tower of vintage luggage now rises like a living sculpture. Each suitcase, opened wide like a treasure chest, cradles life. Earthy soil fills the bottom. From within, strawberry vines tumble over the edges, bright red fruit glowing like rubies against faded leather. Lavender and mint stand proud, their scents mingling in the breeze, calling bees to dance among their blossoms. At the base of this makeshift vertical garden, a wooden stool waits patiently. Upon it, a teacup warms the hand, and a basket overflows with berries, freshly picked from what was once called junk. Elsewhere, a row of upright suitcases hangs neatly along a rustic wooden fence. This is not just a structure, it's a symphony of scent, texture, and utility. Hooks prop open the lids, revealing inner gardens of herbs: basil, rosemary, thyme, each growing in layers, each lush and humming with purpose. Strawberries nestle beside trailing greens, while marigolds bloom at their feet like applause from the earth itself. An old bicycle leans nearby, its basket now a caddy for spades, gloves, and a touch of storybook charm. And inside a sunlit room, suitcases are stacked like bricks in a wall. But this wall breathes, this wall feeds. Their interiors are lined with burlap, filled with lettuce, edible pansies, and the occasional surprise of strawberries hiding between ruffled greens. A watering can hangs from one corner like a gentle whisper, and from an open window, soft music trickles in, merging with birdsong and the murmur of leaves. The air smells of breakfast, of possibility, of joy. This is the heart of upcycling, not just reusing, but reimagining. You don't need a vast backyard to create this kind of beauty. You only need to look at what's already around you. Old suitcases can often be found at flea markets or thrift shops, sometimes abandoned in storage. Choose ones with a sturdy shell. Line them with burlap or landscape fabric to help with drainage. Poke a few small holes underneath, and fill them with nutrient-rich soil. Think herbs for ease, or strawberries for delight. If the structure feels too deep, you can layer the bottom with lightweight filler, plastic bottles, recycled cans, before adding soil. Then place them where the light touches gently, where hands can reach, and where wonder can bloom. With a little care and vision, these forgotten containers become portals. Not to far-off lands, but to something even more magical, a garden born of memory, revived by purpose, and alive with flavor, fragrance, and life. They thought it was just junk. But now, it's the soul of the garden. And every suitcase tells a story. Eight, rope and sack garden barrier. Some stories don't begin with grandeur. They begin quietly, with something forgotten, something discarded. A frayed rope, a worn-out sack, left behind like echoes of purpose. And yet, in the right hands, even the humblest relics can grow into magic. Beneath the morning sun, this rope and sack garden begins to whisper its tale. A fence, if one could even call it that, rises not in defiance, but in invitation. Thick ropes, once used to bind cargo or tether old boats, now twist gracefully between weathered wooden posts. Not to divide, but to cradle life. Hanging from these ropes are pockets made from repurposed jute sacks. Each one tells a silent story, of grain once carried, of hands once lifted. Now, they carry something even more precious: soil, breath, and green. Beets push their crimson-stemmed leaves toward the sky, while baby potatoes nestle in the darkness below. Carrots peek shyly through the topsoil, their feathery greens catching the light. Every pocket bursts with promise, each one a chapter in the garden's rebirth. There's no concrete, no plastic tubs, just earth, rope, and cloth, woven with patience and guided by imagination. Even chickens stroll by curiously, their clucks soft as lullabies. And tucked nearby, a crate spills over with vegetables so fresh, the morning dew still clings to their roots. Elsewhere in the same plot, another row of burlap grow bags stand proud and full, each one supported by tall timber posts and interlaced with ropes that sway slightly in the breeze. Calendula and chamomile bloom at their feet, like loyal guardians of the harvest. And a gardener in a straw hat, silent, focused, tends to a sprig of parsley as if it were poetry. Then, just beyond, a braided rope arch welcomes wanderers into a gentle enclosure, an edible circle of intention. The arch feels like folklore, its curves soft and timeless, leading into a patchwork quilt of leafy green. And at its base, a chalkboard sign offers no instructions. No warnings. Just a truth: harvest with love. This isn't just a garden. It's a philosophy. A quiet protest against waste. A whispered hymn of how simplicity, care, and a little vision can alchemize the discarded into something sacred. You don't need a budget. You don't need a blueprint. Just begin. A few old sacks, a length of rope, some compost, a pocket of earth and time. Let the garden show you the rest. And when you do, you may find, as many others have, that what once looked like junk was always a seed, waiting. Nine, tire bloom maze fence. At first glance, they were just discarded tires, weathered, forgotten, useless. But in the hands of someone who dared to imagine a different kind of garden, they became something magical. Welcome to a garden where color sings, and old rubber rings are reborn as gates to edible wonderlands. This isn't just a garden, it's a living fairy tale, stitched together with sunlight, patience, and a splash of whimsy. Look closer. Each tire, once dull and lifeless, is now painted in the gentle hues of a European countryside: lavender, lemon chiffon, sky blue, and moss green. Some stand upright, others nestle into the earth like cozy bowls, forming winding paths like a maze. But instead of walls, these paths are bordered by life. Strawberry leaves reach outward, basil releases its perfume into the warm breeze, and cherry tomatoes hang like ruby lanterns under soft arches of vines. And then there's the bench. Tucked beneath a living trellis of grapevines, it waits patiently for its visitor. Around it, tires have been hand-painted with folk flowers, daisies, tulips, wild pansies. Pebbles crunch underfoot, petals scatter like blessings, and baskets filled with today's harvest rest quietly, whispering, "This is enough. You made this." This isn't just decor, it's function meets magic. And the secret? It's surprisingly simple. Start with old tires, perhaps from a neighbor or a junkyard willing to let them go. Scrub them clean. Then paint them. Choose colors that sing to your spirit, or patterns that remind you of home. Place them flat, or tilt them upright to create playful arches. Fill them with rich soil, compost if you can, and plant herbs, veggies, or flowers that thrive in shallow beds. Some viewers use basil and parsley for the scent. Others plant purple kale for the drama. A few even tuck in pansies for pops of cheer and pollinator love. And if you want to go further, build a small sign. Something like Nature's Circle, a quiet reminder that even discarded things can be part of life's beautiful loop. There's something deeply peaceful about this garden. Maybe it's the way the butterflies move like thoughts between blooms. Or how the birds rest casually on the edge of painted rims. Or perhaps it's the joy that comes from seeing trash become treasure, not in theory, but right here, in your backyard. So if you've ever looked at an old tire and seen only waste, look again. Because you might just be staring at the doorway to a garden dream. A dream that's not only possible, it's waiting for your hands to shape it. Fairy boardwalk pallet fence. At first glance, it was nothing more than a pile of scrap, discarded cutting boards, leftover pallet slats, and forgotten flower pots. The kind of junk most people would throw away without a second thought. But someone saw differently. Someone looked beyond the dust and splinters, and saw a garden waiting to be born. Now, standing in the golden light of afternoon, this humble fence has become something more, a vertical boardwalk of dreams, where each piece of reclaimed wood holds a whisper of magic. Some call it whimsical, others call it genius. But to those who wander through, it feels like a page from a fairy tale. Old wooden cutting boards, each marked with the soft patina of years gone by, are carefully arranged across the fence like standing stones on a forgotten path. Some remain raw and honest, while others are hand-painted with cheerful daisies and wildflowers. The boards, once meant for the kitchen, now cradle life, tender lettuce, bright calendula, trailing vines of baby melons. Between them, small shelves peek out, simple planks, fixed in place with love and purpose. These aren't just decorations, they're living shelves. Raised beds that bloom upward. A way to grow beauty and food even in the smallest of spaces. A fence that doesn't just divide, but invites. In one corner, tiny lanterns sway from the hooks of repurposed boards. Beneath them, flower boxes spill over with marigold and arugula, while hand-carved mushrooms dance across the grain like forest folklore come to life. Elsewhere, woven baskets hang gently from nails, filled with plump greens that seem to glow against the faded hues of pastel-painted planks. Bees buzz lazily around them, drunk on pollen and peace. The boards behind are not just structural, they are expressive, like the strokes of a quiet artist who paints with wood, soil, and time. And then there's the archway, simple, rounded, and weather-worn. It marks a threshold, leading from the storybook fence into a garden path of cobblestone and herbs. It's not grand, but it feels sacred, as if, just beyond it, a secret world might be waiting. What began as trash has become treasure. If you ever doubted that beauty could bloom from the forgotten, let this fence remind you, transformation doesn't require perfection, just intention. So if you have old boards lying around, whether they're chopping blocks, crates, or pallet slats, don't toss them. Let them stand. Let them support life. Let them guide you to build not just fences, but stories. Because in a garden like this, every plank has a past. Every flower has a future. And every visitor walks away changed. If this transformation sparked even a little inspiration in you, imagine what you could create with what's already around you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Tell us what you would build in your own backyard dream garden. And remember, at Backyard Fortune, trash is just treasure in disguise.